you hear us now?
I can. I'm going to turn off my video since I'm sitting in the car, but I'm here.
Going to call this meeting to order on May 6th, 2025. May we have a roll call, please, Mr. Abrams?
Yes. Mr. Bacon. Present. Mr. Baoki. Present. Mr. DeCosta. Present. Mr. Erboldinger. Mr. Fosbrink.
Present.
Mr. Lawrence.
Present.
President Martin.
Present.
Mayor Porco is not present at the moment. Ready to go, ma'am.
Okay. It doesn't appear that there's anyone here for public comment. So we're going to move on then to the meeting. I have one thing to announce for my president's remarks, and today is Mr. Abrams' one-year anniversary with the borough. He started here last year on May 6, 2024. So please, let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you. It's been quite a year.
I was thinking, especially the last week, but thank you. Okay, so moving on then to operations and policy, Mr. Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam President. How are we handling the motion here?
Mr. Corbel wanted to just do an update on some dates. Could we let him?
Please.
So, if council is considering this evening accepting the resignation, then the timeline, because once we accept it, we have 30 days to make an appointment. So the timeline would be as follows. We would advertise, and I put that in air quotes because we do not have to put it in the newspaper, but we will, let folks know through our regular process that there is a vacancy and they can apply, and that deadline would be as soon as possible. The submission deadline would be the 16th. That would be next Friday. Interviews would occur at the business meeting on the 21st. And then council can vote to appoint at the workshop or whatever, agenda setting meetings on the June 3rd. That would be within 30 days.
So we can do all of that before the official resignation date.
Correct. The appointment would be made and it would be effective the 18th of
Okay,
June. Yeah.
okay,
Mhm.
okay.
I will not be available during the month of June, so that would pull me out of the. Because I won't be able to remotely come in.
Okay, will everybody else be here?
I would be remote on the June 3rd one, but able to dial in.
1, 2, 3, 4. Getting low.
I'll be
Oh, will you be here, Richard?
I'm available, yes.
Oh, okay, well, perfect.
Okay.
Or in the room. That's all that matters.
Is everybody okay with that? Any questions?
I go ahead with the proposed motion then?
Yeah, subject to the timeline that I explained.
Okay. I'll move to accept the resignation of Marcus Erboldinger from the Borough of Forest Hills Council effective June 17th, 2025, and authorize the manager to advertise said vacancy for applicants to complete. Mr. Erboldinger.
Second.
We want to have a voice vote then. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Mr. Abrams, do you have anything to add to operations?
I do not at this time.
Okay. I'll just make a few things since I guess it falls under ops and policies. We just are in the midst of cleaning up after probably one of the most difficult things this council has gone through since the pandemic. And I hope I don't just speak for myself when I say that I think everyone who's responsible for this municipality has done a pretty darn good job handling things. We did mention in ops and policies today that, of course, you'll learn from these things. And unfortunately, we haven't had too much practice, which is a good sign for all of us. But the borough manager and others who are involved in running the borough and handling this emergency will get together and start a process of postmortem. What we do, what was done right, and the little things that could be improved. But I think it's not wrong to sit back a little bit and say, hey, folks did a pretty good job. And I think we should make note. Let me see if there's anything else. Ops and policies did discuss some issues regarding how we handle our social media. I'm just going to say that I think there are areas where we're not entirely in alignment, but they kind of appeared today and I wasn't that familiar with problems. So maybe in another ops and policies meeting later on, we can look to see if there's anything we can do to clean things up, if there's in fact anything that needs to be cleaned up. I don't think there is anything else that I have to submit to the council. Here's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Moving on then to finance, Mr. Fosbrink.
Thank you, Madam President. We have one motion for the agenda, and that would be the motion to approve the purchase of the solar panels on 4400 Greensburg Pike from the Forest Hills PPA at a contracted cost of $318,314. I'll just add that this was a previously budgeted expense, so it's not like it's something new. That's all I have.
Is there any comment?
I'd like to just go in a little bit more detail on this since folks may be listening and curious about it. And Mr. Frostbrink I want to second his statement that this is a previously budgeted item. I would look at it as more of an investment rather than an expense, as this is something that we have been building up to for a long time. The boroughs put $229,000 into a solar repurchase fund over the last many years. And by doing this now, we're saving a significant amount of money for the borough in the long term. This is also being used to free up money from the building fund to cover a deficit in our general fund for the year. So this is a bit of a moving things around to free up money. That $318,000 is coming from the building fund. And we're basically getting $229,000 from the solar fund that was originally planned to cover this, but is now being freed up for general usage. So this was long planned, but also a lot of this money is just coming from the fact that we didn't use all of the building fund that was created in the bond issue for other building related purposes, which I think is entirely reasonable and it's an appropriate thing. But I just want folks to be clear that in a non.
Thank you, Mr. Bates.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think it's just the delay on the Zoom.
Understood.
Mr. Bioki?
Yeah, just to be clear, we're not getting money from the solar fund to put back in the building fund. We're taking money from the building fund to make up the difference for the money that's in the solar fund. Otherwise, it's kind of silly to move one into here and one move the other way around.
Mr. Abrams, is that correct?
We're actually, because of the way that the funds were designated, the solar fund isn't actually a fund. So we are taking the monies from the building fund as a capital purchase And thereby freeing up the solar funds, which are technically part of the general fund, but had been kept segregated for the purpose of making sure that we had money.
A little smoke and mirrors there, but okay.
Okay. Any other questions then? Is that it then, Mr. Fosbrink?
That's all I have. Do we need, I'm sorry, again, I'm just a little out of it because I'm on Zoom and not there with you. Do we need to have a second on that motion?
It's not an emotion.
I'm
And
sorry. Sorry.
that's okay. Okay. Are we all finished up?
Yes, thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Fosbrink. Moving on then to Borough Property, Mr. Bacon.
Thank you, Madam President. One item on the agenda here is to discuss the award granted to the Forest Hills Community Alliance for the relocation of the road now known as Built-to-Massac Way, which is the one right next to the Borough Building. This is to move it per their community vision to the other side of the parking lot, which just makes a much safer and more pedestrian and central campus sort of arrangement for our Borough property up here. What I would like to have us all consider on this, if Mr. Brett could give us just a brief, not super objective, but based on his experience, general statement on whether he feels I believe it's $125,000 in that grant is likely to fully cover that to everyone's satisfaction of a, fully complete project and what they're going for. Just because I'd like us to think about what it might mean if there are no bids within that amount. Should we think about using borough funds to cover the difference, or just what the likelihood of that conversation coming up would even be?
Yeah, I know we did provide an estimate for the roadway itself to be completed. A couple of things that impact the pricing. One, timing. With the bids out, you got a very competitive bid this year on the road paving. Project was put out early. Wilkins was put out actually right pretty close to yours. Same contractor got both contracts in the end. Both had really good pricing because I think you bid early in the year. The second thing is once surveys would be completed, you have to see if there's any utilities impacted. They may need relocated. As we know, a lot of the utilities in the area are very old. So depending on, their status, it could impact the cost. So I think those are things you want to work out up front. And then the timing, unless it's something that can be bid very quickly, you would want to open bids next spring on a project such as that, design it over fall, potentially coordinate with utilities late fall, make sure they get everything out of the way, and then build the project in the spring. I will pull out the estimate for the Public Works meeting, and we can review it in more detail with it. But I do remember we put the estimate together for.
Okay, I think Mr. Abrams had his hand first, and then President Martin, unless you have another order.
To note, I did have conversations with Ms. Dempsey as the president of the FHCA and, spoke to her about the fact that, okay, you got it. And where are we? Because obviously the FHCA can't move a borough road. They got the announcement that they've received the award, just like any grants that we've received. They haven't received the actual contract work yet. They don't have the dates yet. Traditionally, these go 2.5 to 3 years, and it'll probably be 6 months. So there is no rush. When I talked to her, there was some acknowledgement that the cart went before the horse. It was agreed to in concept, but right now the borough is not in any way responsible for anything. Obviously, this is something that was appreciated in concept, but we are not legally tied to anything, and no immediate decisions need to be made by council without you receiving additional information and plans.
Thank you. President Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Bacon. Yes, I would not want to put any borough funds into this. Mr. Abrams had explained, it's a concept. We haven't seen any drawings. Additionally, there would have to be an agreement such as what we had with the band shell between FHCA and LSSE. The borough is not going to pay for their engineering costs on this since it is separate, and I believe agreements would have to be made with them. I think our role is simply to approve the project if we agree on it, but then take no risks.
Thank you. Mr. Baoki?
Thank you. Actually, I wanted to use the phrase cart before the horse, but he beat me to it. Yeah, we haven't seen the actual, any architectural drawings. This is, again, as everyone else has said, conceptual. So I just wanted to put my 2 cents in that I believe that we need to see several drawings. This needs to come before council. We need to make sure that that's the plan that we want to go with before we move forward with this.
Thank you. Mr. Brett?
With everybody's discussion, there is a couple things to consider as we go along the way. One, there's not an actual right-of-way created for that roadway. It's going to be a public roadway if and when it was be finished. So it actually may take a subdivision plan, some other things, and then once it's built, it will need dedicated to borough and accepted by the borough because it's going to be a public way. So there is some steps along the way, because different than normal, we do maintenance here as far as the roadways. You haven't built a new roadway in a very long time. So there's a process to follow. As Mr. Baoki said, there'll be things in the ordinance that has to be followed just because it's a new roadway. Like an HOP onto the street because there's not a curb cut there. There is steps involved, so with that.
And that general process too, you think it's likely that would be essentially facing 2 processes, one for eliminating this connection and a second process for creating the new one, or would it administratively be more of a move?
It'll be 2 separate because the new road would have to be built, dedicated, and accepted, and then you go through a process to vacate the current roadway, but the utilities that are in it, they still get rights to it. Solicitor will run through all that paperwork with you and what has to happen, but I believe if it's a vacation, it has to be done by ordinance.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. I feel like the moral on this is that it will be a long process. Hopefully there's no fence involved to make a decision on. But other than that, it sounds like there's a ways to go and no rush at all. So thank you, everyone, for your thoughts. My other just little note for borough property on the kind of tangent is that I imagine there will be a lot of interest in the tree and shrub committee and various strategic decisions on that in the coming sessions based on everything this last week. And so I just ask that folks start thinking about things that you would like to pose to the tree and shrub committee. I'm sure they would appreciate whatever input we have or concerns that we would like them to try and bring guidance on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bacon. Moving on then to planning and zoning, Mr. DeCrosta.
Yes, so we're going to be asked to vote on the 21st on a notice. We'll have a public hearing for 2 proposals that the owners of Drew have put forth in terms of zoning ordinance changes. It looks as if the planning commission has recommended to approve one and deny the other. We're just not sure which is which at the moment. Oh, you do know? Okay. Yeah, if you want to comment, sure.
So yeah, I couldn't recall the details, so I looked up. So the planning commission considered 2 applications from the Drew's ownership. One was to bifurcate a definition around auto repair shop, so they could do what they wanted to do in that district, which is the S2 district. And they also applied to rezone the parcel from S2 to B1, which allows that use in B1 allows the use that they're shooting for. So planning commission said no to the bifurcation because that would apply to the entire S2 zoning district. And they said yes to the rezoning of the parcel to B1. So that's what you'll be considering on the 21st. Council has, just so you know, and I will talk to you about this on the 21st. You have complete discretion to decide this. There's very little by way of appeal rights, although there is an appeal right, but you have full discretion. So unless you're doing it for some illegal reason, discriminatory or otherwise, it's very difficult to appeal these. So you can make whatever decision you want to on these. There's really no concern on my part on as to what you would like to do. So that'll be here. They will have a lawyer here, Steve Regan. He will make a presentation. If you all recall, we did have a request previously on this site, and we had an attorney here, Don Graham, was here and presented. So it'll be very similar to that. We do not have to make a decision on the 21st, but you certainly can if you would like. That's all I have.
How much time do we have to make that decision?
You'd have to do it by the next month.
By the next month, okay. Thank you for
You're
that.
welcome, yeah.
The other piece of information I'd like to share with council is that I attended a couple of weeks ago a planning commission meeting to discuss they're going to create a subcommittee to help us with overall development of the borough. They've taken a look at the vision plan by FHCA. They've had some comments, they've had some criticisms, and they've had some agreements with that vision plan. So the plan now is for them to sort of align some of their ideas with the vision plan and also come up with some of their own. So I think just keep this in mind as we think about some of these projects like Build Tomasic Way or ordinance changes or things like this. I'd prefer to sort of wait for a report to come out from them to see how these two align. They hope to have something out in, a reasonable amount of time, I think a few months. But they're also going to try to connect with some of the business owners down the business district that have vacant buildings for the most part and see what some of the possibilities might be. So I think if we treat this properly in terms of all of these different entities contributing to the conversation, I think we might get a pretty open and agreeable plan for our future. So that's all I have, Madam President.
We have questions?
A question maybe for Mr. DeCross and maybe Mr. Corbel. Are we able to speak clearly about more detail of what the owners of that land parcel are seeking to do? Should it be changed to B1? Is that something that is
Yes.
explicitly stated?
You can ask that. They'll tell you what they're looking to do.
But we'll have more information about the actual ordinance request before we vote on it.
Yeah, if we have all that, it's available. We can make sure you all have copies
Okay.
of the proposed ordinances. I think those have all been advertised. It's in the packet there here tonight, so you could take a look at it. We've prepared those. It's advertised, sent to the county, all that.
Oh, this is it here.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, they're there. Yep. One that has the definitions in there, that should be the first copy. That's the one they said no.
Okay, I didn't realize that. Sorry.
But yeah, you could say, I mean, that's the real catch-22 on a rezoning for anybody is that, you want to know what they're going to do, because if you make it B1, we have an entire list of things that you can do in the B1 district, right? So you have to consider that when you're making the decision, and there's no way really to hold them to do what they say they're going to do. Like they could say they're going to put it in whatever and do something completely different. So that is the most difficult portion of asking for a rezoning for a particular use, because that opens the box, Pandora's box, if you will, for whatever under that zoning classification. A real rezoning, in my view, makes sense if you believe that that area should be zoned in that way because it makes good sense. It complies with your comprehensive plan, et cetera, right? Like it's those things that you don't really care what they put in there because it makes sense. When you're doing it for a particular use and there's no guarantee that they're going to do that, there's risk involved here. So I mean, I've seen these go both ways, to be honest with you. I've done enough of them where the person comes in, says, we're going to build a hotel, and they do it. And someone says, we're going to build a condo, and they build a warehouse store like a BJ's or Costco. So, you just never know. So hope that answered your, probably more than you wanted to know.
That was very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
So just so I'm clear, this first one with the major.
Those were, the recommendation from the planning commission was no.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
and the second one was.
It's just
recommended.
changing the parcel from S2 to B1, and that was, they recommended approval.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr.
Just
Lawrence.
a clarification, it may or may not make any difference. This, you referred to it as a subcommittee of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Yes,
Is, my perception was when Mr. Kimakata came to us that it was more of an independent group of Forest Hill citizens deciding to band together to do this exploration, not an official subcommittee of a group that we created.
so my understanding after talking to a few people is that the subcommittee isn't really an official entity under planning and zoning. It is like a group of citizens coming together to make some suggestions. So I think, Mr. Abrams, am I right on that, where we don't really need to have any kind of approval for this subcommittee?
My opinion would be yes, but I would also
Mr.
kick
Corbel?
it over to Mr. Corbel as a working group without making official recommendations to the council.
I mean, those aren't, the official boards, commissions, authorities are all set by statute or other action of council. So no, you could create an ad hoc committee by decree of the president or by vote of council, and that has a little more weight. But otherwise, it's just a group of folks that are getting together.
And I think that's what my question was, that perhaps the nomenclature matters. Imprimatur that we are not necessarily giving. So we might want to reconsider.
So is that term subcommittee problematic?
I mean, I think we're using a term like a working group or,
Ad hoc.
well, I wouldn't do ad hoc unless
Ad hoc
you guys
wouldn't need
do
approval.
that. Yeah,
Okay.
that to me indicates subcommittee or ad hoc that either the president of council or council itself voted to create the group.
I see. So working group
Working
would work.
group.
Okay. I'll communicate that to the planning commission. But I think that's what their intention was. And
Okay.
I guess from what their research also dictated that we didn't have to go through an approval process. But like you said, names matter. So
We could just put that in the notes to make sure that's followed up on.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Sure.
That's my
I
only
do
question.
think it was a productive meeting. I think they had a lot of good ideas. Now we just got to get them down. Yeah.
I will be sending council the Forest Hills Code as far as what is permitted in a B1. So because
Okay.
it's actually summarized in a table, I'll make sure everyone has that well ahead of time. So
Thank
that you're
you.
able to.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeCosta. Moving on to Public Works, Mr. Fosbrink.
Thank you, Madam President. Before I get to our motion, I just want to echo Jack's comments earlier and acknowledge our Public Works crews for how much they have been working, how hard they've been working over this past week with the emergency, and just to thank them publicly. We have one motion for the agenda, and that's the recommendation to accept the base bids from A. Liberoni Incorporated, a total of $750,720.41, and to reject all of the ad alternate bids. This is for the street paving program for this year. We have any
Can't see-
questions about that?
He has his hand up. Yeah.
Am I good? Okay. Well, Mr. Fosbrink, this is Angelo. I do have a question. If we reject the add-ons, the ad alternate bids, are we under budget?
You know what? I'm going to ask that Mr. Abrams answer that question because I'm going purely from my recollection about this.
Yes, we would be under budget, Mr. Baoki.
And a follow-up, if we are under budget, is it possible to look at getting 6 permanent speed humps installed where we have the temporaries while they're doing the paving so that they've already mobilized? And that way we can reuse the temporary speed humps in the event that we get some requests in and we make a decision to move forward.
Yeah, it's similar items, so we can get a price. We can add it by change order after the awards completed at this month's meeting. The following meeting, we would have those prices. Public Works Committee could review it, and then we could add it next month at the voting.
Okay.
You say all 6 get prices?
Yeah, they've been in place now. There's been no problems with them from what I understand.
Mr. Fosbrink, I have a question as well. Is that okay?
Absolutely, but actually I have a follow-up question now that Angelo asked that question. Just to make sure, and I don't want to split hairs, but under our paving program and the tax requirement of what we spend on that is speed humps do they fit into what we have to do or what we can do with that money based on the allocation? Just want to make sure it's okay.
We're talking about liquid fuels money, so
It's actually a blend of the liquid fuels and the 1 mil.
yeah,
So
we could
should be-
definitely,
Yeah, it's all paving, so.
yeah, so I think it's fine.
It fits.
Yeah, under either scenario.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, President Martin, your question?
I just had a question about the road selection when I looked at it. There was one little road, Lamar, and I believe that one was between Cascade and Washington.
Yeah, that's right.
It was one of the alternates or something. So my question was, that one was new to everybody. And I wondered what the rating on that road is.
I'd have to look it up. That one got added at a Public Works Committee meeting based on the winter conditions, and I think Mike.
Do you know?
So we looked at several roads that were heaving because of the weather conditions, the cold winter that we had. And so that was one, since it was concrete, I believe that one, Chalet, Roberta, all those were added because they were cracked up. That one wasn't so bad as far as cracking, but humping. It's concrete, so that was one of the reasons we did that. But there's no major issues in the summertime. Just like Chalet, when the winter comes, it heaves at the joint. So that was just a recommendation due to weather conditions at the time.
I'm not against that road or anything, but what I would like to bring up is what we never look at with the paving. I know council had always liked to do lately the worst roads first because a lot of the alleys weren't ever paved. And yes, I know they're expensive, but then we had a resident that came last year, Mr. Sivak, and he was talking about the 500 block of Decatur. And what happened from it, Mr. Watkins was the Public Works Chair, and he said, I'll go meet you there at 8 o'clock. So by the time he got there, Public Works was already there filling in everything. So what we never add into the cost when we evaluate is if we have a bad road, like I rode down Decatur tonight, and it's pretty bad. So I just wonder if we remember when, residents come in, they have a complaint. I know a block is longer than Lamar, but I would ask that we consider those roads as well, especially when somebody comes in, because it's only fair. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that was just my recommendation due to weather.
Oh, yeah, sure, thanks.
If I could,
I just want to complain about Lamar here for a minute. That road was built approximately when I was born, so I cannot imagine it needs to be repaved.
I have a question to this is, Ian. So to clarify, did we include Lamar in, that was just one of the alternates, correct, that we're not accepting?
Correct. We just took pricing on it,
Yeah.
because it was brought up. And I do recommend we do that. When we have roads that are getting really bad over the winters, at least take a price on them so you know how much in the future it's going to cost, even if you do not award them. So now we have a really good baseline for what it's going to be.
Mr. Fosbrink, it's Joe, could I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Seth, Mr. Abrams, do you know approximately how much savings we're going to have on this project from the budgeted amount?
I can look that up, but I believe we were somewhere around 40,000 from what we had budgeted to what the base bids came out of at
40,000, you said?
below.
Oh, okay.
That was my recollection as well, was around 40 that we looked at. But that has to stick with the paving program. We can't use that to cover any other deficits anywhere
Right.
else.
Mr. Brett, do you think adding the speed bumps project would cost us that much? Just approximately?
Fix is going to be close.
Okay.
One thing to note too, anything that we do have extra, some of the roads that we're at alternates are roads that will need paved next year because they're roads that we put sanitary on, storm sewers. Going to pay 50% of the cost on those. So we have some predetermined for next year already that you're doing infrastructure work, or they are asking the water company to change the water lines on those roads. I'll know that the lines are 100 years old. Definitely need change prior to us paving any streets that we do infrastructure work on, so.
So is everybody okay then with the price?
Did get 4 bidders this year too, which was very good. I've picked up 4 bids.
Does anyone have any more questions for Mr. Fosbrink? Everybody okay with
Okay.
that then? Sorry, you're on a little delay. I don't mean to be jumping in here.
It's okay. I'm doing the same thing. I will also just add to that since I am new with Public Works, in our last Public Works Committee meeting, I asked to understand better how the road grading system works and what the lists are. And I spoke with our engineers about that. Mr. Brett was not at that meeting. It was another person, but they're going to get to me some of this information so that I better understand how the roads are graded and how we are making these assessments of which ones to include. Other than that, if we could just go to Mr. Brett for his engineer report, and I believe he's going to give us some information on the MS4 training.
Yes. Good evening, everybody. We do have one update from the engineer's report. We did take bids on the regionalization lining project that you have some GROW funding from Elkasan on, and the apparent low bidder on it was In Situ Form Technologies. 5 contractors picked up 2 bid, and the apparent low bidder with the base bid and all add alternates, which we do recommend. They're all point repairs or things that need fixed in order to complete the dedication process over to Elkasan. These are the interceptors that Elkasan is going to take over ownership and maintenance of. Prior to that, these items need to be repaired. Over the years, you had done a number of projects. These were the ones that were left. So the apparent low bidder as In Situ form, $393,113 would be the amount recommended. And once these get completed, we have to turn in the televising to Elkasan. They'll probably come out and verify on their own, and then there'll be a significant lift for the solicitor, for council. There's a bunch of steps that has to happen in order to get the sewers turned over to Elcasan. And we've seen that process take anywhere from 9 months. How the documents go back and forth. But this is the last step as far as construction with the interceptor. And these are the ones down along Ardmore. So you definitely want rid of all of these. They're larger diameter. Anything above 12 inch in diameter is what is multi-municipal regionalized. So it's a good thing for the borough in the end, because again, this infrastructure is very, very old. Any questions on that? Yes.
You mentioned the televising. Is that part of that bid, or is that something that the borough is able to accomplish?
This is something that is part of the bid, that they have to go in and televise the segment that they're going to work on. They have to verify that they can still line it. And then if the answer to that question is yes, then all the ad alternates can be done. If they come back and say something's changed in the last 18 months, have a reset, they wouldn't do this item, and we would see what the repair is. This is based on the CCTV that was done a year or two ago, roughly. So we always have that to begin with, because there's always that chance in these big rains, something changes in the sewer, and then you get in there, and we don't want to have somebody have a big liner that they bought, and now they can't use it. So this is to confirm nothing's changed, basically up to the minute of when they're going to start to work.
Thank you.
Now for the moment you've all been waiting for, MS4 training. The quick recap on the borough's MS4 permit. So you've had a permit since 2004. You've been through 3 permit cycles. Last permit cycle was the first permit that you had to actually build something. Pollution reduction plan is what had to be built. Unfortunately, you tried 2.5, 3 years ago to build the first PRP. It failed, and we're currently in design of different areas to do your pollution reduction plan. They have to be completed by next September. So over the next year, we're going to talk about this often until you get your pollution reduction plan completed from the 2018 permit. One of the items that is new is the draft permit was released in January from DEP for the next permit cycle. So the last permit cycle, you had to address sediment through a pollution reduction plan and with 10% reduction. Now changing the permit, and I just got back from Hershey. I went to the PSATS conference, and DEP spoke to us there about the new permit, which we had done a review on it, and they just confirmed some things. So the last permit cycle was very prescriptive, that you had to do a calculation and you had a certain amount of pounds of sediment that you had to remove. They're going to change the next permit cycle to be a volume reduction plan. Part of that plan and calculation that the department has created that you have to fill out and send in with your notice of intent, which is the permit that you get. It'll be due next year in September. So over the next year, you'll begin to work on that as well. That plan is more towards volume reduction, so flooding reduction in the region. I think what they did, based on today's discussion and what we've read in the permit, is they're taking a step back and saying, instead of doing stream restoration and projects that dealt with sediment, they're going to have all the communities build volume reduction. So it's ponds, infrastructure that reduces the amount of flow out of the communities. It does have a sediment reduction, but it is going to be centered around volume. So the upstream communities, when they release their water, they won't be flooding the downstream community. So second part of it is there is a socioeconomic piece of it. So when ACOs and CSOs were permitted in the 70s, combined sewers had the same thing, where it was based on the affordability and what people could pay. And if communities were distressed, they had to do the same amount of work, but it got stretched out time-wise. So DEP was pushed pretty hard on this today at the session I was at, because different than the normal engineering calculation, we have to put in what the average utility bill is in a community, how much debt a community has, what the mean income is in a community, all the things as far as economics. And as you put that data in, it may lessen the amount you have to do per cycle, which means instead of it, and this is the first we heard this was today, it's going to be a 50-year permit cycle, because you've all been at many of seminars and heard, well, this permit's going to go away. Isn't this permit going to go away? Well, today was the first that we've heard that this permit is going to be a 50-year cycle. So it's 2025, so you're looking at 2075 when you would meet your volumetric calculation. They also told us what the calculation is, so and it makes it easier for us to explain. 88% of your impervious area in the community, so all your roads, must have a volume reduction on it after 50 years. So it's the first that we really had it encapsulated to what it is. And so at communities, the older communities that do not have any infrastructure as far as ponds, ways to reduce the volume of stormwater out of the communities, it gives them a target on getting this completed over the next 50 years. This permit cycle will be 5 years. What's nice about this one is because it gives you some time to plan. Now and next September, you have to draft your permit, and it has a bunch of stuff, engineering stuff we have to put with it, calculations, and we'll review that with you. And they're going to give you 2 years to do the actual design work, no construction. The problem with the last permit cycle and why every community struggled was they said, okay, you got to do this calculation, then you immediately got to start building. Well, nobody had any construction money set aside. It was very difficult to fund. So now they're going to give you some time in this first 5 years. So you'll have 2.5 years to design the items. And then in 2030, I believe it is, you'll actually do the construction. So we'll work with Seth during this budget cycle so that we can get this programmed out for the whole 5 years and say, okay, here's what we think it's going to cost, per year. So the council can look then and say, okay, here's how we need to plan and fund as far as your volume reduction plan. And now, since they're prescriptive in the form that we have to fill out, and there's a whole bunch of calculation sheets that they've provided, and in the end, it tells you what your loading is once we load all this information in. We did comment to the permit because there's certain things that we don't know where the community can actually find, like the average utility bills. So we can find a sanitary bill or a water bill. That's public information that you can get from the water company. But the average electric bill in a community, we don't know where that site is that somebody gathered that data and provides it. Or communication bills, like they want all utility bills added in. So there's 4 or 5 things that the department did not tell us where the sites are going to be created in order for you to get the information to put into it. But I would say, based on today's information from the department, that over the next 6 months, all that will become very clear when they issue the final permit. They said they're looking at everybody's comments now, and they're going to come out with their responses sometime over the summer here. So we have basically a year to get the permit completed. We'll come on that as it comes out. We'll, and especially the Public Works Committee, we'll go through the details. That is the general discussion on the volumetric plan. I did hand out a canned presentation. Page 10 of it gives the schedule that I just discussed. NOIs are due September 30th, 2026. Final permit effective date will be October 1st, 2026. Your volume plan and your new ordinance has to be adopted in 2028. So there'll be a new stormwater ordinance that comes out with this as well. And then 2030, you have to have your start reporting on your volume reduction plans, and 2031 they have to be completed. So 2030 and 31 will be where you start construction. If somebody has a small project in 29, we will recommend that you actually start them, start building and get some work completed. So any questions on any of that? Currently, you are not in compliance because of being behind before. We are going to do everything we can to make sure that come next September that you can check the box and say you've complied. If you don't happen to be able to do that, they kick you into an individual permit. We do now know what the penalty is. We don't know what they're going to do to people that don't get completed yet. Typically, they give an order. They haven't said that yet. The other thing that happens, an individual permit is $2,500 a year fee versus $500 a year fee for the permit. So again, in order to save just the $2,000 a year, we want to do everything we can to get you to the finish line here. So stay tuned on all that as we go through the year. Any questions on that? This is a requirement too, to have public training. He says, why are we doing this? It's embedded in the permit that you're to have public and have an announcement about your program. Here's where you're at compliance wise. So.
Okay, if there are no questions, Madam President, we are finished with Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Fosbrink. Moving on then to Public Safety. Mr. Bioki, is there anything you had?
Thank you, President Martin. I have nothing for the business meeting for the agenda unless Chief Williams or Mr. Brett have anything to add.
I just want to say that I thought everybody did the best they could do out there in this mess we had last week. And again, you know, I think we were somewhat handicapped by the fact that some of the issues really came back to a Duquesne Light situation where wires had to be removed before we could remove trees and before we could do a lot of other things. So again, I know that everybody within the borough and all the employees and everybody that was out there did everything they could do to make it as safe as it could possibly be and get as much opened up as we could have done. So thank you. And I know that you all know that. And I know I got a lot of thanks and we got a lot of praise from the residents as well. So that's all I have.
Chief Williams. Mr. Brett, is there anything?
Nothing additional tonight.
Okay, then that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Bioki. Is there any old business?
Nothing major. Forgot to bring it up. The borough manager will be sending everyone a draft of the fundraising policy that we have discussed over the last, I think, 2 months. And he'll be sending it out to you with a deadline to please review it and please get your responses back. It's been kind of floating around there and it's time to get this done. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any new business? Okay, then I have to get my cheat sheet out. Okay, then I move to adjourn the meeting. Are there any objections? Okay. The meeting is closed. Adjourned. Thank you. Sorry.